The danger of real hatred is not just in what it does to you externally, it's in how silently it infiltrates your peace of mind. Unlike anger, which you can see and defend against, hatred hides behind politeness, fake smiles, and subtle gestures, and by the time you recognize it, it may already have drained your energy, isolated your allies, and poisoned your inner circle. That's why the Stoics warned us, it is not the loud enemy who threatens us most, but the hidden one. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The harm others do to us is real, only as long as we allow it power in our minds." Hatred thrives when we fail to recognize it, and it collapses the moment we see it clearly for what it is. In this video, we're going to uncover 7 undeniable signs of real hatred, the kind that is far more dangerous than anger. These aren't random grudges or fleeting bad moods. They are deep-rooted patterns of malice, patterns that once you see them will forever change how you protect your emotional intelligence, your psychological boundaries, and your inner peace. So stay until the very end. Because if you can master this knowledge, you'll not only defend your self-worth from hidden enemies, you'll also build the kind of high-performance mindset that turns their hatred into fuel for your growth. And if you're ready to see the world without illusions, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. Comment below with the affirmation, "I protect my peace." Now, let's begin with the first sign. Hatred doesn't always arrive with a roar. It often disguises itself behind encouragement, politeness, even a smile. And one of the clearest signs that someone harbors real hatred toward you is that they quietly, deliberately, and consistently work against your success. This is not an impulsive act. It's not someone losing their temper and saying something cruel in the heat of the moment. No. This is a calculated pattern of sabotage, crafted carefully to leave no fingerprints, no clear evidence, no scene of the crime, and because it's subtle, most people don't notice it until the damage has already been done. The hidden saboteur. Think about that colleague who somehow always forgets to forward you the key email before an important meeting, or the so-called friend who tells others, "She's been a little impulsive lately." Small comments that seem harmless in the moment, but over time, build a narrative that undermines you. These people don't want you to explode. They want you to doubt yourself. They want others to doubt you as well. Their goal is not just to disagree with you openly, because in an open conflict, you still have a chance to defend yourself. Instead, they choose shadows over sunlight. They nod while you speak, agree with your ideas, then quietly reshape the environment so those ideas never see the light of day. On the surface, they may appear supportive. They clap at your presentations, congratulate your milestones, even offer advice. But underneath, every move is designed to pull one thread after another from the fabric of your success until it unravels. The psychological cost. What makes this form of hatred so dangerous is not only the sabotage itself, but the mental erosion that follows. When you don't realize someone is working against you, you turn the blame inward. You start questioning yourself. Did I forget that email? Maybe I really am too impulsive. Am I overreacting? And slowly, You weaken your own psychological boundaries. You stop trusting your judgment. And when you no longer trust yourself, you hand power to the very people who want to see you fall. This is why emotional intelligence is so critical here. Without it, you'll misinterpret sabotage as coincidence, betrayal as misunderstanding. But with emotional intelligence sharpened, you begin to notice patterns, the repeated mistakes, the faintly undermining comments, the way opportunities somehow vanish without explanation. Stoic insight. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The harm others do to you is only as real as the power you give it in your mind." That doesn't mean ignoring the sabotage. It means refusing to let it poison your inner peace. The Stoic response is to acknowledge malice without letting it destabilize your spirit. Epictetus reminded us, control lies in our choices, not in the hearts of others. You cannot stop someone from resenting you, but you can stop feeding their resentment with your reactions. When you recognize sabotage, your strength is in clarity, not anger. Because here's the truth. Anger makes you reckless, but clarity makes you unshakable. And hatred thrives only in the chaos you give it. How to respond with Stoic power. So how do you deal with this hidden enemy, not with emotional outbursts that only makes you look unstable while they play the victim? The Stoic path is strategy 1. Limit what you share. Information is power, and when you hand it to the wrong person, you arm your enemy. Practice discretion. 2. Keep records, emails, conversations, agreements. Document the important things so that when sabotage happens, the truth is undeniable. 3. Build alliances. Surround yourself with people who know your true character. Hatred feeds on isolation. Community starves it. 4. Let results speak. Create outcomes so clear and undeniable that no amount of whispering can erase them. Success that is visible cannot be buried. This isn't paranoia, it's self-respect. It's protecting your self-worth without allowing bitterness to consume you. It's refusing to give your peace away to someone who's already decided they want you broken. The Stoic edge. Realize this: some people are happiest when you're at your lowest. Your failure validates their secret resentment. To win them over is a fool's errand. You are not here to rehabilitate their opinion of you. You are here to live in alignment with your values, to guard your inner peace, and to rise above their games. From a high-performance mindset, you don't waste time proving yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You channel energy into progress so undeniable it silences the whispers. As Seneca said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy, to respond with dignity, discipline, and stillness." That is the Stoic's victory, the shadow of hatred. The tragedy is that hatred thrives in shadows. It doesn't want you alert. It doesn't want you to notice the missing invitations, the sudden coldness in a friend's eyes, the opportunities that vanish without reason. But once you see the pattern, you can no longer unsee it. And here lies your power: observation without obsession, awareness without fear. To calmly recognize, this person is working against me, and then strategically remove their influence from your life. Because hatred feeds on your reaction. The more you lash out, the more energy you give it. But when you remain calm, When you build your fortress of psychological boundaries, their efforts collapse under their own weight. So, remember this. The first undeniable sign of genuine hatred is when someone quietly works against your success, not loudly, not openly, but consistently, invisibly, with a smile that hides satisfaction at your stumble. Don't waste your soul chasing their approval. Don't exhaust yourself trying to change their heart. Instead, embody the Stoic path. Sharpen your awareness. Guard your self-worth. And let your unshakable inner peace starve their hatred of the chaos it craves. Because hatred cannot survive where there is nothing to feed on, and your silence, your stillness, your clarity, these are the weapons that dismantle it. If anger is fire that burns hot and fades quickly, hatred is the cold smile when your world collapses. One of the most chilling signs of real hatred is this: they feel a quiet, unmistakable joy when bad things happen to you. This isn't about envy or the natural jealousy people sometimes feel when comparing themselves to others. It isn't about someone being too distracted to celebrate your success. No, this goes deeper. It's about people whose inner darkness lights up when life throws pain your way and they can't quite hide it. No matter how much they try, the subtle glimpse of satisfaction hatred rarely shouts. Instead, it leaks out in the smallest cracks of behavior. When you share a setback, they ask questions that seem supportive but feel invasive. Their eyes brighten just a little too much. Their tone lingers on your pain. And their words, though polite, weigh you down instead of lifting you up. They'll say things like, "I'm so sorry that happened, but honestly, I kind of saw it coming. That must be awful for you. Tell me more. What exactly went wrong?" To others, it looks like concern. To you, it feels like interrogation. Their interest isn't in easing your burden, it's in savoring it. Your suffering is their entertainment, the mask of empathy. People who hate you will often try to mask their reactions with scripted sympathy, but the energy betrays them. When you share good news, they respond quickly, flatly, eager to move on. But when you share struggles, they suddenly have all the time in the world. They lean in. They dig for details. They want to stay in your pain, not to help you through it, but to feed on it. Social media makes this clearer. They ignore your achievements. No likes, no comments, no recognition. But the moment you post about a challenge, they are first to respond, offering a remark that looks supportive on the surface, but magnifies your hardship for others to see. This is hatred in its purest form, the inability to hide satisfaction when you stumble, the psychological erosion. The danger isn't just in the sting you feel in those moments, it's in the long-term effect. Over time, you begin to withdraw. You stop sharing your victories because they are met with indifference. You hesitate to share your struggles because they become gossip fodder. Slowly, your self-worth erodes. You start to wonder if your wins matter to anyone, if your pain is just entertainment, and worst of all, you begin to internalize their reactions, subconsciously believing you deserve their indifference or their mockery. This is why emotional intelligence is your shield. With it, you stop misinterpreting their fake sympathy as genuine care. You begin to see the truth. Their response reflects their character, not your value. Stoic insight, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We are not disturbed by things, but by our judgment about things." The sight of someone quietly celebrating your pain might ignite anger or despair, but the Stoic reframes, their reaction does not define you, it unmasks them. Seneca reminded us that envy and hatred are diseases of the soul, consuming those who carry them more than those they target. When someone lights up at your downfall, they reveal their weakness. They show that your existence, your success, your mere presence threatens their fragile sense of worth. The Stoic response. So, how do you protect yourself? Not by exposing them. Not by confronting them with outrage. That only gives them more entertainment, proof that their subtle cruelty controls your emotions. Instead, you respond with discipline. 1. Observe. Don't react. Notice the patterns without exploding. Awareness strips them of secrecy. 2. Guard your boundaries. Limit what you share. You don't need to broadcast your hardships to those who feed on them. 3. Redirect your energy. Instead of proving yourself to them, invest in relationships where empathy is real and support is mutual. 4. Strengthen your inner peace. Remember, their joy at your pain cannot touch the fortress of a mind that refuses to let hatred dictate its state. This is the practice of psychological boundaries, choosing who gets access to your emotional world. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table, especially those who secretly toast when you bleed. High-performance mindset. The high-performance mindset sees this dynamic for what it is. Distraction. Every ounce of energy you waste resenting their reactions is energy stolen from your growth. Why would you give your enemy the satisfaction of not only enjoying your pain but also owning your focus? The Stoic doesn't. The Stoic notices, adjusts, and rises. Because the truth is, some people can only feel big when you feel small. The most devastating revenge you can take is to grow so resilient, so self-assured, that their joy at your pain is drowned out by the undeniable evidence of your rise, the shadow of hatred. And here's the sobering truth. Hatred disguised as empathy is one of the hardest poisons to detect. It wears the mask of care. It speaks the language of concern. But it's hollow, and once you recognize it, you'll never forget it. So trust your instincts. If their words don't match their energy, if their support feels heavy instead of light, listen to that signal. It's your inner wisdom telling you the truth. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Don't let their joy in your suffering stain your spirit. Recognize it, rise above it, and walk with clarity. The second undeniable sign of real hatred is this: they celebrate your pain in silence, in subtle glance, in feigned concern. They are the ones who turn your hardships into stories, who feel alive when you feel broken. But here's the Stoic victory. You don't let it define you. You choose instead to guard your self-worth, to protect your inner peace, and to rise beyond their reach, because their secret joy in your suffering is the loudest confession of all that you have something they can't destroy. And when you remain calm, resilient, and untouchable, their hatred collapses into its own emptiness. Hatred rarely comes straight to your face. Open conflict is too obvious. Too risky. Too easily exposed. The truly dangerous kind of hatred doesn't attack you head-on, it works through others. It whispers, it manipulates, it rewrites your story in the minds of people around you until one day you realize you're standing alone. This tactic has a name: triangulation, and it is one of the clearest, most corrosive signs of real hatred. The subtle web of division. Imagine someone who positions themselves as the concerned friend or the loyal colleague. They never openly insult you. In fact, they might even defend you in public. But behind closed doors, in quiet conversations, they begin to plant doubts about your character. They'll say things like, "I really admire her, but lately she seems a bit unstable. Don't you think I hope he's okay? He's been under a lot of pressure. I just worry he's not making the best decisions." Notice how these aren't outright accusations. They're suggestions, seeds, and seeds grow quietly. One comment alone may seem harmless, but repeated over time, they create a narrative that you are unreliable, impulsive, untrustworthy. By the time you notice colleagues pulling away, friends going silent, or family members looking at you differently, the story has already taken root. You're defending yourself against suspicions you never even knew existed. The mask of concern. What makes this tactic so insidious is the disguise it wears. The saboteur doesn't come across as malicious. They look like they care. They frame their words as worry, not attack. They'll even sigh heavily and say, "I hate to say this, but I'm just concerned for them." This makes them look trustworthy. To others, they seem like the safe, dependable one who has everyone's best interests at heart. Meanwhile, they've weaponized your reputation, reshaping how people perceive you without ever appearing guilty. This is hatred at its most refined, not messy, not emotional, surgical, calculated. The psychological toll. When this happens, the damage isn't only external. Yes, your reputation suffers. Yes, your opportunities shrink. But the deeper wound is internal. You begin to question your relationships. Why is my friend acting distant? Why wasn't I invited? Why do I feel like I'm walking into a room where everyone knows something I don't? Over time, this isolation corrodes your self-worth. You wonder if maybe you are the problem. You begin doubting not just them, but yourself. And when you stop trusting yourself, their hatred has already won half the battle. This is why psychological boundaries are crucial. You must learn to separate your truth from their narrative. Because the more you internalize their whispers, the more you live inside a story you never wrote. Stoic wisdom. Seneca once wrote, "The harm that others do to you is nothing compared to the harm you do to yourself when you believe them." This is the Stoic insight you need here. You cannot stop someone from whispering, but you can stop their whispers from nesting in your mind. The most important battlefield is not in the opinions of others, it is in your perception of yourself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "Be content with what you are, and wish not to be otherwise." To the Stoic, integrity is not negotiable. Your worth is not up for debate in the court of public opinion. The Stoic response. So how do you deal with someone who turns others against you? Not by chasing every rumor, not by confronting every whisper. That path is exhaustion. and it only proves to others that you're unstable. Instead, the Stoic response is clarity and directness. 1. Open lines of communication. If a friend grows distant, go to them directly. Ask. Listen. Clear the air. Do not let the manipulator be the middleman. 2. Live transparently. Hatred thrives in shadows. By being consistent in your actions, you make rumors weaker. People will see the gap between what's said and who you really are. 3. Anchor in your truth. Remember what you know about yourself. The Stoic doesn't panic over distorted narratives because their foundation is not external approval, but inner alignment. 4. Refuse to play the game. Every time you rush to defend yourself against every whisper, you validate the saboteur's strategy. Sometimes the most powerful move is silence paired with integrity. High-performance mindset. The high-performance mindset reframes betrayal as clarity. If someone can be turned against you by whispers, perhaps their loyalty was never strong to begin with. Better to discover that truth now than to build your future on false foundations. Instead of wasting energy proving your innocence, you invest that energy in building results so undeniable that no rumor can overshadow them. Reputation built on noise crumbles. Reputation built on visible action endures. And here lies your edge, where they waste their time weaving webs. You sharpen your focus, expand your skills, and create outcomes that cannot be denied. The shadow of hatred. This is why turning others against you is such a dangerous sign of hatred. It doesn't just attack your reputation, it attacks your connections, your trust, your sense of belonging, and once isolation sets in, you become far easier to manipulate. But the Stoic doesn't live in fear of whispers. The Stoic lives in clarity, by speaking directly, by trusting their own judgment, by refusing to hand control of their story to others. They remain untouchable. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, let them talk. Let them whisper. Their words cannot rewrite your reality unless you agree to live by them. The third undeniable sign of real hatred is this: they don't attack you directly. They turn others against you, quietly poisoning your relationships until you are isolated. But here's the Stoic truth: you are not powerless. By guarding your psychological boundaries, by anchoring in self-worth, by living with transparency and courage, you dismantle their weapon. Because in the end, hatred doesn't just want you to fall. It wants you to be alone when you do. And the greatest defiance is to build a life so solid, so grounded in truth, that no whisper, no rumor, no shadow can tear it apart. There is a kind of hatred that doesn't scream, doesn't sabotage from afar, and doesn't merely whisper behind your back. Instead, it stands right next to you, pretending to admire you, pretending to learn from you while secretly plotting to erase you by becoming a distorted reflection of your life. This is the hatred of toxic imitation, when someone copies you, but not out of respect. They copy you to outshine you, to replace you, to prove to themselves and others that they can do what you do, only better. The distorted mirror healthy admiration is easy to recognize. It uplifts you. It sparks creativity. A person might borrow an idea from you, but they add their own flavor, their own originality, and they often give credit where it's due. You feel energized, even proud, when someone is inspired by you. But toxic imitation feels different. It leaves you drained, uneasy, almost violated. Because this isn't about growth. This is about theft. It's about stripping you of your uniqueness, mirroring your life like a distorted reflection, and then parading it as their own creation. They study you obsessively, the way you dress, the way you speak, your habits, your work, your relationships. But their goal isn't to learn, it's to replace. Every time you take a step forward, they scramble to copy the move and rush ahead, desperate to claim the spotlight before you. This isn't competition. This is obsession. And obsession mixed with resentment is one of the most unsettling forms of hatred. The psychology behind it. Why do people do this? Because deep down, they feel inferior. They see in you something they crave, but cannot naturally embody: confidence, charisma, resilience, creativity, or success. Instead of building it in themselves, they take the shortcut: mimicry. But mimicry alone isn't enough. Their fragile ego needs proof that they are not just like you, but better than you. That's why every imitation comes with a twist, a deliberate attempt to overshadow you. It could look like this. A colleague takes your idea, tweaks a few details, and presents it as their own in front of the boss. A so-called friend suddenly adopts your hobbies or style, then works overtime to appear more skilled, more stylish, more original. On social media, they mimic your tone, your themes, your aesthetic, but claim it as their unique voice. And when confronted, they may even flip the script, accusing you of copying them. This gaslighting not only damages your credibility, but deepens their own illusion of superiority, the erosion of self-worth. The danger here isn't just external, it's internal. When you constantly feel shadowed, mirrored, and undermined, you begin to second-guess yourself. You hesitate to take bold steps, fearing they'll be copied and weaponized. You begin to live with one eye on them, anticipating their next move, adjusting your own path just to avoid being imitated. Slowly, they drag you into their obsessive game, a game you never agreed to play. And this is how hatred works, not always through open attacks, but by eroding your self-worth, by making you doubt the authenticity of your own path. This is why emotional intelligence matters. With it, you recognize the difference between healthy inspiration and malicious imitation. You stop blaming yourself for being copied, and instead see the behavior for what it is: envy disguised as admiration, hatred disguised as inspiration. Stoic insight. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." The wisdom here is profound. Stop living your life in comparison. When someone copies you, they want you locked into their game of one-upmanship. They want your attention, your frustration, your validation. But the Stoic doesn't play that game. The Stoic continues on their path with dignity, letting results speak louder than imitation, because imitation cannot touch the essence of who you are. They can copy your words, your style, your habits. But they cannot copy your mind, your values, your character. The Stoic response. So how should you deal with someone who copies you while trying to outdo you? 1. Detach emotionally. Don't waste energy on anger. Recognize that their imitation reveals their insecurity, not your weakness. 2. Stay original. Keep innovating. Keep evolving. A copy will always be one step behind the original. 3. Set boundaries. Limit what they can see or access. Protect your ideas, your projects, your private life. 4. Anchor in self-worth. Remember, your value does not decrease because someone else tries to imitate it. This is the essence of psychological boundaries. You can't stop others from mimicking you, but you can stop them from stealing your peace. High-performance mindset. The high-performance mindset sees this as clarity, not a curse. If someone dedicates their life to imitating you, it means you are walking a path worth following. Your existence threatens their mediocrity. Instead of being dragged into their obsession, you double down on your growth. You keep refining, keep building, keep elevating. Because while they waste time imitating, you are innovating. And in the long run, innovation always outpaces imitation, the shadow of hatred. Here's the truth. People who copy you to outdo you are not just competitors. They are confessing their hatred in disguise. They resent your existence, but they cannot deny your influence. So they try to erase it by becoming you or a louder, more exaggerated version of you. But remember, no copy, no shadow, no imitation can ever eclipse the original. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That's your shield. You don't sink into pettiness. You rise in originality. The fourth undeniable sign of genuine hatred is this. They don't just oppose you. They try to become you while working to erase you. But here lies your stoic power. You don't need to prove yourself in their distorted mirror. You continue to walk your path with clarity, self-worth, and inner peace. Because hatred cannot outdo authenticity, and in the end, no imitation, no matter how convincing, can ever replace a life built with integrity, discipline, and resilience. Not all hatred looks like sabotage. Not all hatred shows itself in joy at your pain or in calculated whispers. Sometimes, hatred is more subtle. It shows itself in the atmosphere a person creates around you. One of the clearest signs is this: every time you interact with them, you walk away feeling smaller, unsettled, or drained. The invisible weight. You might not even notice it at first. After all, nothing dramatic seems to happen. The conversation is polite. The tone is calm. The words appear harmless. And yet, afterward, you feel heavy, like someone siphoned off your energy without your permission. Later, you catch yourself replaying the conversation in your head, searching for the exact moment where it went wrong. You wonder if maybe you were too sensitive, but deep down, your instincts are sounding the alarm. This wasn't a normal exchange. That's the mark of hatred disguised as civility. It doesn't attack directly. It corrodes gradually, like acid on stone. The subtle weapons. How does it work? Through micro-attacks. Small, deliberate doses that slip under your radar but cut deeply over time. The backhanded compliment that turned out better than I expected. The polite insult, "You're doing great." Especially considering your background. The casual reminder of old mistakes. Remember when you messed that up, funny times. Each one is wrapped in a layer of politeness, giving them plausible deniability. But the intention is sharp to unsettle you, to plant seeds of doubt, to remind you of your flaws. Hatred doesn't always want to destroy you in one blow. Sometimes it wants to chip away at you, piece by piece, until you no longer trust yourself. The psychological toll over time. These interactions erode your self-worth. You find yourself walking on eggshells, second-guessing your words, avoiding certain topics, even censoring your own thoughts. This is the hallmark of psychological warfare, making you doubt not just the relationship, but your own perception of reality. You start asking questions like, am I overreacting? Did they mean it that way? Maybe I am too sensitive. And that's exactly the trap, because the moment you stop trusting your instincts, you give their hatred the power to define your truth. Stoic insight. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you let someone's corrosive energy seep into your mind repeatedly, it begins to color your perception of yourself. The Stoics warned that our greatest vulnerability is not the attack itself, but the way we internalize it. Hatred wins when you carry its poison into your thoughts long after the conversation has ended. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That's what these interactions do. They plant doubts so small that you carry them, magnify them, replay them, until the wound becomes larger than the original sting. The Stoic response. How do you fight this kind of hatred? Not by arguing over every slight, not by demanding apologies for every hidden insult. That's fighting on their terms. Instead, you step back and see the pattern. You realize that the unease you feel isn't random, it's a consistent signal, and then you take control. 1. Trust your instincts. If you consistently feel drained after interacting with someone, take it seriously. Your subconscious is noticing what your conscious mind can't yet name. 2. Limit exposure. Protect your energy. Not everyone deserves your time, your stories, or your presence. 3. Set psychological boundaries. You don't need undeniable proof to justify distance. The effect on your inner peace is reason enough. 4. Detach from their frame. Don't argue with them about what they really meant. That only traps you in their narrative. Instead, quietly withdraw their access to your mind. This is emotional intelligence in practice, recognizing corrosive influence without over-explaining yourself, and choosing peace over endless defense. High-performance mindset. From a high-performance mindset, the question is simple: does this interaction fuel my growth or drain my strength? Energy is your most valuable resource. Every time you allow someone to drain it, you're giving them power over your progress. And progress is too precious to waste on hidden enemies. The Stoic doesn't let energy thieves dictate the pace of their life. They choose instead to invest in environments that sharpen them, relationships that uplift them, and routines that preserve their inner peace. Because your performance, your focus, Your discipline these thrive only when you protect the integrity of your energy. The shadow of hatred. This is why hatred expressed through draining interactions is so dangerous. It doesn't just steal opportunities. It rewrites your sense of self, bit by bit. It convinces you that you are small, unstable, or unworthy. But once you recognize the pattern, you take back the power. You stop doubting yourself. You stop carrying their words home in your heart. And you remember peace is not something they can give or take. Peace is a discipline you practice. Epictetus taught, "No person is free who is not master of himself." That includes mastery over your attention, your energy, and your peace of mind. The fifth undeniable sign of genuine hatred is this: every interaction leaves you drained, not because of one big insult, but because of 100 small cuts, each designed to make you doubt yourself. But here lies your stoic power. You don't let their poison dye your soul. You trust your instincts, set firm boundaries, and protect your energy like the treasure it is. Because the greatest act of defiance is not fighting every hidden insult, it is living with such clarity, discipline, and inner peace that their hatred collapses into silence. Not all hatred needs words. Sometimes, the most dangerous hostility comes not from what is spoken, but from what is withheld. One of the most subtle yet undeniable signs of real hatred is when someone deliberately uses silence as a weapon not to find peace, but to control, punish, and destabilize you. The chilling intent behind their silence. There's a difference between someone taking space to calm down and someone deliberately cutting off communication to make you suffer. The first is emotional intelligence. The second is psychological warfare. When someone hates you, silence becomes their favorite tool. They withdraw affection, withhold responses, and ignore your presence not to heal themselves, but to manipulate you. They want you to feel invisible, unworthy, and powerless. It could be a partner who suddenly stops responding to your messages for days, not because they're busy, but because they know the silence gnaws at you. It could be a colleague who withholds crucial information at work, forcing you into mistakes. It could be a family member who gives you the cold shoulder at gatherings, making everyone wonder what you did wrong. Their silence is not absence. It is strategy, the psychological trap. Why is this so damaging? Because human beings are wired for connection. When someone deliberately withholds acknowledgement, it creates an ache that feels like rejection, and rejection, over time, erodes self-worth. You find yourself overthinking, what did I do wrong? Why won't they talk to me? Maybe if I try harder, they'll stop ignoring me. And that's exactly what they want. Their silence isn't passive. It's active control. It makes you chase, beg, and overcompensate. It shifts the power dynamic so they feel superior and you feel desperate. This tactic is especially cruel because it makes you question not just your relationship with them, but your value as a person. Stoic wisdom. The Stoics warned about this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been." When someone uses silence as a weapon, the real damage isn't in the silence itself. It's in how you interpret it. If you see it as proof that you're unworthy, you hand them victory. But if you recognize it as a tactic, an intentional manipulation, you strip it of power. Epictetus taught, "What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about things. Their silence doesn't define you. Your judgment of it does." The Stoic response. So, how do you respond when someone weaponizes silence? Not by chasing, not by pleading, not by explaining yourself endlessly. That only feeds their strategy. Instead, 1. See the tactic clearly. Recognize silence for what it is, an attempt at control. Awareness is your shield. 2. Protect your boundaries. Refuse to reward their silence with desperation. If someone withholds, let them. Your worth does not shrink because they refuse to see it. 3. Redirect your energy. Instead of waiting for their response, pour your focus into growth, discipline, and relationships where communication is mutual. 4. Guard your peace. Inner peace is a choice. You don't need their acknowledgement to validate your existence. This is psychological discipline in action, refusing to let someone else's withdrawal dictate your emotional state. High-performance mindset. From a high-performance mindset, silence as a weapon becomes irrelevant the moment you refuse to chase it. The person who withholds communication expects you to crumble, but when you remain calm, focused, and productive, their tactic collapses into futility. Imagine the power in this while they're busy playing games with silence. You're busy building your career, your discipline, your inner strength. In the long run, who truly wins hatred thrives on reaction. Stillness starves it. The shadow of hatred. This kind of silence is cruel because it pretends to be nothing at all. But make no mistake, it is an attack. It is meant to fracture your confidence, isolate you, and make you doubt your place in the world. But the Stoic sees it clearly. Silence is only powerful when you give it meaning. If you interpret it as proof of your weakness, you fall. If you interpret it as noise unworthy of your focus, you remain unshaken. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Their silence is an outside event. Your peace is an inner choice. The sixth undeniable sign of genuine hatred is this. They don't always fight with words. Sometimes they fight with silence, using it to control, punish, and erode you. But here is your Stoic victory. You do not chase. You do not beg. You do not bend. You protect your self-worth. Maintain your psychological boundaries, and choose inner peace over manipulation, because the moment you stop fearing their silence, it ceases to be a weapon, and in that stillness, you discover the unshakable truth. No one can make you invisible if you refuse to disappear. Some people dislike you, others envy you, but those who truly hate you, they do something more sinister. They obsess over your failure. They don't just want you to stumble once. They want to see you crushed, ruined, and proven less in every possible way. This obsession doesn't fade. It lingers. It grows. And it becomes one of the clearest, darkest signs of genuine hatred. Their eyes are fixed on your downfall. A person who hates you will watch your life like a predator stalking prey. They wait for you to trip, to miscalculate, to make one wrong move. And when it happens, they don't just acknowledge it, they savor it. If you lose money, they say, "I knew that plan was too ambitious." If you have relationship struggles, they murmur, "I'm not surprised. I saw it coming." If you face setbacks, they suddenly become experts, analyzing your mistakes as if they were rooting for this moment all along. This isn't normal observation, it's fixation. They measure their own worth, not by their progress, but by your collapse. The psychology of obsession. Why does this happen? Because hatred thrives on comparison. These people cannot build their identity on inner strength, so they build it on your weakness. Your success threatens them. Your failure soothes them. Every stumble you make becomes proof to them that they are right, that you aren't as strong, smart, or capable as others believe. In their mind, your failure justifies their resentment, their envy, their bitterness. But notice this obsession says more about them than it does about you. People obsessed with your downfall are confessing their own emptiness. They have no vision for themselves, only a fixation on your destruction, the trap of internalizing their doubt. The real danger isn't just their obsession, it's the temptation to internalize it. When you hear people constantly predicting your failure, you start to doubt yourself. What if they're right? Maybe I really will fail. Maybe I'm not as strong as I think. And that's exactly what they want. Because the greatest sabotage isn't when they celebrate your failure, it's when they make you sabotage yourself by believing their narrative. This is where psychological boundaries become life-saving. You must separate your vision from their poison, their words, their predictions, their obsession. None of it defines your path unless you let it. Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Their obsession with your failure cannot harm you unless you give it weight. You always have the power to revoke its influence. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In this case, their hatred reveals itself as obsession. You cannot control their fixation, but you can control your response to detach, to rise, to keep building regardless. The Stoic response. So how do you handle people obsessed with your failure? Not by proving them wrong with anger, and not by shrinking yourself to avoid criticism. The Stoic response is strength in stillness. 1. Stay focused. Their obsession is noise. Your progress is signal. Don't confuse the two. 2. Let results speak. Build. Grow. Succeed not for revenge, but for alignment with your values. 3. Guard your peace. Their fixation doesn't deserve space in your mind. Your energy is for growth, not defense. 4. Detach from comparison. Their obsession only has power if you agree to play the comparison game. The Stoic path is walking your own road. Eyes forward. Unshaken. High-performance mindset. From a high-performance perspective, their obsession is actually fuel. If they dedicate their time to waiting for your collapse, it means your existence is already shaking them. Instead of being dragged down by their negativity, use it as motivation. Let their predictions become the background noise that sharpens your focus. The best response to someone obsessed with your downfall is not bitterness, it's undeniable excellence. Imagine the quiet devastation it brings them when, year after year, you refuse to break. When you not only endure, but thrive. That is victory. Not loud, not vengeful, but absolute. The shadow of hatred obsession with your failure is dangerous because it never rests. Unlike anger, which burns out, hatred waits. It sharpens itself on every rumor of your weakness, every crack in your armor. But here lies the truth. Their obsession imprisons them. Not you. They spend their lives watching, waiting, wasting energy that could be used to build their own future. And the more you rise, the more their hatred consumes them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the best revenge is to be unlike your enemy. You do not live your life in obsession, bitterness, or envy. You live it in discipline, integrity, and peace. That alone is enough to destroy them from within. The seventh undeniable sign of real hatred is this: they don't just dislike you, they don't just envy you, they become obsessed with your failure, waiting for it, predicting it, celebrating it. But here is the Stoic's path. You don't live to disprove them. You live to embody your highest self with emotional intelligence, psychological boundaries, and inner peace. Their obsession becomes irrelevant the moment you stop feeding it with attention, because in the end, hatred is a fire that burns its bearer first. And the ultimate victory is not revenge, but the calm, disciplined growth that makes their darkest obsession collapse under the weight of your undeniable resilience. Hatred is never what it seems. It doesn't always scream in anger. It doesn't always show itself in obvious attacks. Real hatred hides. It whispers in shadows. It waits in silence. It studies your every move, and when it finally strikes, the damage is deep because you never saw it coming. But now, you see clearly. You've learned the 7 undeniable signs of real hatred. They quietly sabotage your success. They feel joy in your pain. They turn others against you. They copy you to outdo you. They drain your energy in every interaction. They use silence as a weapon. They obsess over your failure. Most people never recognize these patterns until it's too late. But you are not most people. You have the clarity, the discipline, and the wisdom to see